that rented the space?
Yeah.
Rachel Notley about her candidacy.
But what kind of message does that send if the official opposition is telling Albertans which media can and can't ask questions?
I can't speak to that.
I understand you're just doing your job. I can understand that, but I just came here to ask questions respectfully of the members opposite. I'm not here to start trouble.
Yeah.
Neither is the gentleman that you were speaking to earlier. So, I mean, what's the harm in asking questions?
I understand that. Again, this area is what they've booked.
Yeah.
So I can't really.
Yeah.
Some things, some people, they never change. Alberta's NDP leader, Rachel Notley, and her extreme actions regarding respecting, or rather disrespecting, the deeply held Alberta principles of the free press are a great example of this. The video you just saw now was taken Monday by a Rebel News journalist named Alex Dhaliwal. He's a calm, level-headed young man, and he was on his way to attend an NDP press conference about what the party described as a funding commitment to support the economic diversification of downtown Calgary. And the NDP kicked Alex out before he ever got a chance to ask a prickly question. Now, to be clear, Rachel Notley cannot announce any funding because, well, she's not the premier. This was a campaign announcement from a woman who wants to be elected Alberta's next premier. While promising money to diversify the economy of downtown Calgary, which is plagued by crime thanks to Calgary's progressive city council policies, Notley was also making another promise if you read between the lines. Rachel Notley, the woman who would be Alberta's next premier, was promising to violate the press freedom of Alberta's independent journalists should she be elected one more time, because she did it at her own press conference to Alex Dhaliwal. But he wasn't the only victim. Notley did it 3 times. I'll get to that in a second, but if you agree with me that independent journalists of all stripes should be able to do their jobs and hold politicians to account, please go to notleyisabully.com and sign the petition. Now, the reason I said at the beginning of this video that some people never change is that Rachel Notley did this to me in 2016 when she was the premier, when I tried to attend a joint press conference in the People's Legislature building between her and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Notley used an armed sheriff to kick me out for simply showing up to do my job and hold these people to account on behalf of Albertans. Look at this.
Do you have accreditation for today's event?
We already spoke to Darcy Henton. He said there should be no problem to come in. What? Sorry, why is that? Sorry, why?
Notley didn't kick anybody else out that day. None of the other independent journalists in the province were shown the door because at the time, most of the independent journalists in this province were wild-eyed leftists. Notley targeted the one independent conservative journalist that came to work and hold Notley and Trudeau to account on behalf of the people for their job-killing policies. But what happened as a result of all of that? Well, there was an investigation and a report. It was called the Boyd Report, which found that the government obviously has no right to determine who is or isn't a journalist. Yeah, no kidding. It's a job you do, not a guild you join where you need the permission of the very people you criticize to do your job.
Parties are individuals who directly undermine and attack the independent professional work of journalists. And listen, I could write books about all the times I've disagreed with what journalists have said about me and about the conclusions they've jumped to. But questioning their right and their legitimacy to do that weakens our democracy and our values in fundamental ways.
Nor do I need the permission of my failing competitors to do my job either. I mean, I have a job because they're so awful. Notley was slapped on her wrist and slightly embarrassed at the time, but the NDP, being the NDP, they've learned nothing from history, their own or others. I mean, these are the very same people who say they're going to get communism right this time if we just give them the opportunity. Notley repeated her own history on Monday, because it wasn't just our journalist, Alex Dhaliwal, that was booted from Notley's press conference. She also booted out Cian Bexty, my former co-worker who now runs the Counter Signal. Look at this.
Well,
So
I'll take
I don't
media
want to split
questions.
hairs. I don't want to split hairs here. So
I mean, the Premier took questions from me. So did the Mayor of
well,
Calgary.
I mean, whatever they do is their bailiwick, right? It's nothing to do with us, right? So again, I understand that. What they choose to do is within their purview. I'm just a messenger boy here.
I appreciate that,
Just conveying
but
the message, so
I think that it's totally reasonable that I'm here. I mean,
it may very
do you
well
work
be.
for the party?
We're contractors, but
You're contractors, security contractors, to stop media from asking the ex-premier
I'm not
questions?
stopping.
Oh, but it wasn't just Rebel News and prickly little counter signal. Western Standard got the same treatment. Look at this.
The Western Standard news site and our Edmonton reporter, being fully accredited members of the press gallery, why has your party cut us off from receiving the NDP press releases and media advisories?
Well, sir, I very much appreciate the question, and I do appreciate you being here, and thank you very much for the birthday greetings. However, as much as we have in the past taken questions from your bosses, your institution, unfortunately, your publication recently has been engaging in very active homophobic, discriminatory, hateful editorial positioning as it relates to some of our caucus members. And until such time as that is retracted and an apology offered, we will not be answering questions.
So 3 independent, non-government funded conservative outlets were removed by the NDP from an NDP press conference. What do you think these people are going to do to us or to you if they ever get back near the levers of power again? And where are the mainstream media on all of this? They're standing idly by as their peers, albeit competitors in the media landscape, are denied the ability to do their jobs. The mainstream media are still whining about Danielle Smith, Alberta's current premier, who incidentally does not refuse to take any journalist questions, for limiting the media to just one question and no follow-up, largely because of time constraints. I mean, how many times can multiple CBC journalists ask the same woman the same question on any given day? Apparently, limiting journalists to just one question and no follow-up is an extreme attack on journalistic freedom. But banning 3 independent outlets simply because they are the former premier's greatest critics? Silence from the hypocrites. And speaking of hypocrites, Notley was losing her marbles the other day when the premier limited questions to just one and no follow-up, claiming that she would never and has never done anything like this. We had the NDP saying that limiting questions to just one is dangerous to democracy and dodging accountability. I think we might have made it, maybe, 72 hours before Notley showed us her true colors, or rather reminded us of her true colors. Now the UCP, the United Conservative Party, the current governing party, to their credit, is taking a strong stand against Notley banning independent journalists, issuing a statement yesterday decrying the treatment of independent media by the NDP, and so they should. The reason I say that the independent press and journalistic freedom is a long-held Alberta value is that it's part of the DNA down at the legislature, or at least it used to be. Long ago, back in the 30s, Alberta had a social credit premier named Bill Aberhart, and he passed a law, the Accurate News and Information Act, or the Press Act. And the Press Act said that for every criticism leveled against the government in the newspaper, the government must be allowed to issue a propagandist-style rebuttal in the very same newspaper. Now, the Edmonton Journal, currently completely colonized by Justin Trudeau and I suppose even Rachel Notley at the time, fought the Aberhart government in court for the freedom to publish the criticisms they wanted about the government. And the Edmonton Journal won that case, and then they won a Pulitzer Prize for their fight. Today, those same post-media journalists are either silent or, in the case of myself, they previously had a witch trial to ban Rebel News from being members of the legislature press gallery. You see, if it isn't the government banning us, our peers and competitors are banning us too. But I'm proud to say that we would never do these things to the other side, because if you care about press freedom or any freedom, then you have to care about it for your enemies too. which is why when Jason Kenney, Alberta's former Conservative Premier, banned a leftist news outlet from attending his press conferences, we at Rebel News actually provided that ungrateful leftist our own legal research, previously compiled during the aforementioned Boyd report, to help him gain access to the legislature and do his job to hold Jason Kenney to account. And this is someone who is a vicious critic of not just conservatives in general, but of us here at Rebel News. But human rights are for everybody, and not just the people you like or the people you agree with. That's something Rachel Notley doesn't understand, and it's something the majority of journalists in this province do not understand either. But what has transpired over the last day, I think, is a welcome reminder to Albertans as they approach the polls in about a month. It's a good refresher, a primer about just how tyrannical Rachel Notley was during her previous 4 years in government, and just how bad she will be if Albertans lose their minds and send her back to the Premier's office. And if Albertans have some sort of collective psychotic meltdown and do elect Rachel Notley, and Notley does go about banning conservative journalists, rest assured we will call on you at home to help us in the fight for freedom. And I know, as always, we can count on you. For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. To send a message to the NDP and to all politicians that press freedom is an Alberta value, please go to notleyisabully.com and sign the petition.